In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, November 22nd, here on the peninsula. North Korea launches a spy satellite Tuesday evening, despite an earlier notification of a launch period between today and next Friday. And South Korea announces intentions to partially suspend a cross-border military pact signed in 2018. Over in London, President Yoon is received with much pomp and fanfare in London amid an official banquet on Tuesday, hosted by King Charles, as the two countries celebrate 140 years of diplomatic relations this year. 50 hostages, including children and women, will be freed from captivity in Gaza after a deal was sealed between Israel and Hamas that pundits say is a major breakthrough after weeks of tough negotiations, including Qatar, the US, and Egypt. North Korea claims its third attempt at launching a spy satellite into space was successful. The launch took place late Tuesday night, despite its earlier notification of a launch period between today and next Friday. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
North Korea reportedly succeeded in putting what it calls a military reconnaissance satellite into orbit late Tuesday night. The regime's state-run Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday said the North launched a reconnaissance satellite from a launch site in Dongchangni on the west coast at 10:42 p.m. Tuesday. The report said the carrier rocket flew normally and accurately to put the reconnaissance satellite Manligyong-1 into orbit at 10:54 p.m., 705 seconds after launch. Pyongyang had failed twice in previous attempts to do so, in May and once again in August. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly observed the launch at the site. And the regime defended the latest launch, saying that it strengthens its right to self-defense and enhances its military's war preparedness. Pyongyang also vowed to launch more spy satellites in a short span of time. Shortly after the launch, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that it was conducting a comprehensive analysis. The military also noted that Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo had jointly detected and tracked Pyongyang's satellite by deploying Aegis destroyers near the planned flight path in advance. The JCS condemned the North, saying that the launch was a provocative act that violates UN Security Council resolutions, which prohibit the use of ballistic missile technology. The White House and the U.S. Department also strongly criticized the launch and demanded that Pyongyang immediately cease its provocative actions.
It violates multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions, and we will continue to work with the international community to send a strong signal to the DPRK that its actions will only intensify its isolation as it undermines stability and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida condemned the launch as well.
Even if the purpose is to launch a satellite, using ballistic missile technology is a clear violation of the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. It is also a very serious matter that greatly concerns the safety of our people.
The nuclear envoys of Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo also held phone talks on Wednesday and condemned North Korea's launch. South Korea's foreign ministry said the country's special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, Kim Gon, and his U.S. and Japanese counterparts expressed deep concerns that Pyongyang carried out a deceptive launch more than an hour before it had originally been announced. The three countries agreed to take action against North Korea's illicit threats together with the international community. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Indeed, condemnation of North Korea's satellite launch has been swift and stern, with South Korea sharing intentions to suspend part of a cross-border military pact signed in 2018. Our Kim Jung-sil has details.
The South Korean government has decided to suspend part of the 2018 Inter-Korean military agreement as of 3 p.m. on Wednesday, November 22nd, says South Korea's Ministry of Defense. The ministry added that the suspension procedures would include notifying Pyongyang. The announcement on Wednesday comes as President Yoon approved a motion earlier in the day to partially suspend the 2018 Inter-Korean military agreement. The president's immediate approval followed an extraordinary cabinet meeting at the government complex in Seoul following last night's satellite launch by North Korea. In the meeting, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said Pyongyang's launch of the so-called military reconnaissance satellite is a direct provocation that threatens national security, saying that North Korea has no intention of keeping to the 2018 military agreement. Seoul's swift decision comes as President Yoon led an emergency National Security Council meeting from London on Wednesday Korean time. There, he said Pyongyang's launch, whether successful or not, is aimed at enhancing surveillance on South Korea and improving North Korea's ICBM capabilities. The NSC released a statement saying the government will take steps to suspend the effectiveness of Article 1, Clause 3 of the September 19 military agreement, which designated no-fly zones above the military demarcation line and banned aerial reconnaissance within 25 kilometers of the MDL. With Wednesday's decision, South Korea will likely immediately resume reconnaissance and surveillance operations against North Korea as in the past. Meanwhile, South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik, who has been reiterating the drawbacks of the inter-Korea military deal, convened a meeting of key military commanders early Wednesday to discuss measures in preparations for the partial suspension of the agreement. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in London, President Yoon Suk-yeol and First Lady Kim Gun-hee were received with much pomp and fanfare by King Charles and Queen Camilla at their first official encounter. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young shares some of those scenes.
Quoting timeless poetry, President Yoon Suk-yeol and King Charles III celebrated 140 years of diplomatic ties between South Korea and the United Kingdom at a state banquet in Buckingham Palace. The South Korean leader and First Lady Kim Gun-hee attended an official banquet hosted by King Charles in the opulent palace ballroom. Thanking King Charles for his hospitality, Yoon said that at the heart of Korea-UK relations has been their blood alliance in the fight for peace and democracy. He noted that the UK had dispatched the second largest number of troops to aid the South during the 1950-53 Korean War. Britain was the first European country to establish formal diplomatic links with Korea, signing a Treaty of Friendship and Commerce in 1883. Both the President and the King agreed that their decades-long ties had been bolstered not only diplomatically and economically, but through cultural exchanges. Yoon highlighted Britain's model of parliamentary democracy, literary and scientific excellence, and musicians like the Beatles as strong sources of inspiration for Koreans and the world. Referencing Shakespeare's sonnets, Yoon raised his glass to the future as the two governments upgrade their relations to a global strategic partnership.
대한민국은 자유, 인권, 법치의 보편적 가치에 기반하여 영국과 함께 전 세계의 자유, 평화, 번영의 미래를 향해 굳건하게 협력할 것입니다. 이제 국왕 내외분의 건강, 또 한영 관계의 새로운 미래, 그리고 세계 평화와 번영을 위해 건배를 제의하겠습니다. To me, my fair friend, the United Kingdom, you never can be old.
King Charles also highlighted the importance of shared values and quoted the words of Korean poet Yoon Dong-ju, whose works inspired hope and resistance against Japan's colonial rule of Korea before and during World War II.
Korea's preservation of its sense of self amid bewildering change was perhaps what the poet Yoon Dong-ju, who so tragically died in captivity on the very eve of Korea's liberation, anticipated when he wrote, "While the wind keeps blowing, my feet stand upon a rock. While the river keeps flowing, my feet stand upon a hill."
The tie and tiara affair was held on the South Korean leader's first official day of a state visit, with some 170 guests, including eminent figures in politics, business and arts, including Samsung chief Lee Jae-yong and K-pop group Blackpink. Surrounded by vibrant displays of flowers in red, purple and pink, the horseshoe-shaped table was adorned with gold-gilded plates holding egg and spinach tartlets, Windsor pheasant and a mango ice cream dessert, and decorations of pink sugar flowers resembling Korea's national flower mugunga or hibiscus. The South Korean president's official visit began on Tuesday with a royal greeting by the Prince and Princess of Wales, who drove with them to the Horse Guard Parade ceremonial ground to meet the King and Queen. The President and the King observed a 41-gun salute, 21 reserved for heads of state, with an extra 20 guns added given the royal venue, before heading to Buckingham Palace in a carriage procession. Following a private luncheon, Yoon was given a tour of South Korea-related items in the royal collection, including a letter sent by an emperor of Korea's Joseon dynasty Gojong to Queen Victoria, photos of Queen Elizabeth II's visit to South Korea, and the vase gifted to her. President Yoon and the First Lady will call again at the palace to bid farewell to King Charles on the last day of their state visit on Thursday. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, London.
And staying in London, addressing members of the British Parliament also on Tuesday, President Yoon sought to rally greater support for future bilateral collaboration by highlighting shared values as well as cultural assets. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
At the UK Parliament on Tuesday, President Yoon laid out his vision for a new era of bilateral relations between South Korea and the UK, saying the relationship will be reborn as, quote, true global strategic partners with greater focus on security.
Together, we will tackle North Korea's WMD threats. We will work more closely together to combat international cyber crimes, including cryptocurrency theft and technology hacking.
President Yoon also cited the recent ramping up of security cooperation, saying the UK participated in a joint military exercise between South Korea and the US for the first time this year. The two are also building mechanisms for intel sharing. He also touched on the economic aspect of ties. He said the two countries are now on their way to revising their bilateral free trade agreement to reflect the current economic situation and strengthen cooperation on supply chains and digital trade. And with the new Downing Street Accord being signed on Wednesday, they'll broaden cooperation in digital, AI, nuclear energy, and arms sectors, among others. And during his 17-minute speech in front of 450 UK lawmakers, he said Koreans and British people are strikingly similar.
The United Kingdom is the country of the Beatles, Queen, Harry Potter, and David Beckham's right foot. Korea is the country of the BTS, Blackpink, Squid Game, and the Sonungmin's right foot.
He also referred to a quote from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet of, "For this alliance may so happy prove to turn your household's rancor to pure love," saying, "For this friendship may so happy prove to turn challenges to pure opportunity." In the meantime, a big part of his speech gave appreciation for the UK's involvement during the Korean War. At one point, he acknowledged a veteran in the audience, the winner of 2019's Britain's Got Talent, Colin Thackeray.
On behalf of the Korean people and the government, I thank you with deep gratitude and respect.
This comes as Yoon also visited the Korean War Memorial and laid a wreath. The UK during the Korean War sent the second largest contingent of troops to help South Korea with around 81,000 servicemen and women, of which more than 1,000 died. He also laid a wreath at the grave of the unknown warrior at Westminster Abbey and showed his appreciation for World War II veterans who fought for freedom. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And coming up on this Wednesday in London is a business forum that will witness the inking of numerous initiatives aimed at promoting partnership in clean energy. Our Park Gun-woo has more.
South Korea and the UK are set to strengthen their partnership, especially in the energy sector, during President Yoon's state visit to the UK. According to the Industry Ministry on Tuesday, the two countries will sign a total of 9 MOUs based on nuclear power cooperation at the UK-Korea Business Forum in London, Wednesday local time. One of the MOUs will be between both governments, while the other 8 will be signed by companies and organizations from both countries. Through the governmental MOU, the two nations will designate the building of new nuclear plants as their core cooperative agenda and plan to have technical meetings to discuss details later. South Korea and the UK are set to resume discussions over the construction of nuclear plants in the UK after talks previously came to an end when the Korea Electric Power Corporation's acquisition plan for the Moorside nuclear power station in England's northwest failed in 2019. Also during Yoon's state visit, the Industry Ministry said it would expand collaboration with the UK's Department for Energy Security and Net Zero with the so-called Clean Energy Partnership. Under the partnership, both countries will be cooperating on nuclear power, as well as offshore wind and hydrogen power generation to achieve net zero. The two nations will also enhance cooperation in clean energy technologies and establish an annual high-level dialogue channel to discuss related issues. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, Israel has voted to support a deal for the release of 50 women and children abducted by Hamas in return for a 4-day halt in fighting. Our Arirang covers the Prime Minister's words prior to that vote.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday called on his government to back a hostage deal that will see the release of some hostages taken by Hamas during the October 7th attack on Israel. Netanyahu also told his government that it was a difficult decision, but the right decision, and would allow Israel to go on fighting Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister also stressed the war would continue until Israel achieved its goals, emphasizing that a hostage deal would not mean the end of the conflict. Israel, however, continued its airstrikes on the Gaza Strip while negotiating with Hamas through U.S. and Qatari intermediaries to release hostages. The Hamas-affiliated Shihab news agency reported Tuesday that Israeli forces attacked a residential apartment in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, killing 10 people and injuring 22. Meanwhile, CBS News says the hostage deal will allow for an initial group of 50 hostages held by Hamas to be released in phases during ceasefire windows. The proposed deal also includes a limited daily 6-hour pause in fighting for 4 days. If agreed upon, the deal will also see the release of Palestinian women and children held in Israeli detention centers at a ratio of 3 released for every hostage held by Hamas. U.S. President Joe Biden said Tuesday that a hostage deal is now very close.
My team has been in the region shuttling between the capitals. We're now very close, very close. We could bring some of these hostages home very soon.
Sources say if the first phase of the hostage release goes as planned, roughly 20 more hostages will be released by Hamas, and the pause in fighting will be extended. 이승재, Arirang News.
And in other news, the U.S. Federal Reserve has reportedly opted for a cautious policy stance. Now, this is according to a summary of its November session that was shared on Tuesday. Policymakers acknowledge the presence of much uncertainty from both upside risks like resilient spending and downside risks like the repercussions of a tight policy. Keeping this in mind, they chose to keep interest rates steady yet again during their November session, but hinted at the possibility of a hike depending on incoming data. Their next policy session begins on December 12th. Meanwhile, on the football field, Team Korea beat its Chinese counterpart 3-0 for its second straight victory in the Asian World Cup Qualification tournament. Tuesday's match in China saw the Taeguk Warriors entering the score sheet early. Captain Son Heung-min scored a penalty in the 11th minute before heading a second goal just prior to the end of the first half. Defender Chung Seung-hyun found the net for Korea's third goal in the 87th minute. Given this latest win, Team Korea now sits comfortably in first place in Group C with a full 6 points after 2 matches. The national team will now face Thailand in home and away matches in next March. On a light note now, an endearing clip of a 3rd grader making kimbap has taken her social media platform by storm. Our Ishi, who had the pleasure of exchanging a few words with her, to take a listen.
Hi, my name is Avery. Here's what's in my lunchbox.
Meet Avery, a 3rd grade student in New York City. In a 1-minute video uploaded on the city's social media, she showed the world how to make one of her favorite foods, kimbap.
I put the seaweed on the foil, and then I usually just take the rice and put it on the seaweed and flatten it out, roll it up, and this is kimbap.
The video has over 7 million views from many who applaud Avery's confident spirit. In an interview with Arirang News, she shared more.
So I was at summer camp and I was waiting for my friends to come back from the big lunch line, and I was eating my lunch. And a grown-up walked up to me and she asked if they could film me about what's in my lunchbox because the mayor wanted to know what was in kids' lunchboxes.
On that day, she was about to enjoy her usual favorite lunch.
I usually bring Korean food for lunch, and usually it's kimbap, and my favorite Korean lunch is kimbap.
She's a third-generation Korean American.
My mom taught me, and I eat it a lot.
And the appeal of kimbap?
I just like the combination of pop and kim.
Not much has changed in Avery's daily life.
Like, I don't really talk about it with my friends. Like, they know about it, but we don't really talk about it.
But she's touched millions of hearts that have once been too shy to embrace their culture.
We're very proud, of course, and so happy that her video has brought so much joy to so many people. And we're just glad that it was able to, as many of the commenters have said, healed some of their inner childhood trauma that they faced when they were her age growing up and bringing their own ethnic foods to school.
She's very proud of being Korean. For special days, she dresses up in her hanbok when she did shows at school, and she'll wear it, and her friends are very enthusiastic about it. She has no shame. She's very confident about everything.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
이시후, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Brazil, a new record has been set for the hottest ever temperature in the country at 44.8 degrees Celsius. The new high temperature was recorded on Sunday in the town of Araçuaí, Minas Gerais, in Brazil's southeast. Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology said that the previous record of 44.7 degrees Celsius was set in 2005. The unexpected heatwave comes not only as a result of climate change, but also due to the El Niño phenomenon. Also in Brazil, heavy storms in the south of the country flooded several rivers, killing at least 4 over the weekend, with substantial flooding also seen on Monday. More than 1,600 people has been evacuated in Rio Grande do Sul. In Southeast Asia, more than 1,000 Myanmar Rohingya refugees have arrived in Indonesia over the past week. Arriving by boat in Aceh, Indonesia's northernmost province, most of the refugees left from camps in Bangladesh to endure the difficult sea journey. Following a Myanmar military crackdown in 2017, more than 700,000 fled to refugee camps in Bangladesh, which are overcrowded and have poor conditions. The Myanmar military have been accused of mass rape, murder and burnings of thousands of homes of Rohingya Muslims. The refugees were first denied landing by Indonesian residents before being given temporary shelter. However, Indonesia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that the country is under no obligation to host refugees, as it is not a party to the 1951 Refugee Convention. And to the US, where President Joe Biden kept up the tradition of officially pardoning a turkey at the White House on Monday. While some say the custom goes back as far as Lincoln, according to the White House Historical Association, it was John F. Kennedy who handed out the first reprieve to a turkey back in 1963. This year, 2 turkeys, Liberty and Belle, from Minnesota, were granted freedom from American Thanksgiving dinner tables. The spared turkeys will retire to the University of Minnesota. Monday also marked Biden's 81st birthday, making him the oldest president in U.S. history. Kim Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Much of Korea is enjoying the last stretch of late autumn weather. Afternoon highs in Seoul will climb up to 14 degrees Celsius this afternoon, and those in the southern provinces are having much warmer highs. Meanwhile, dry weather advisory remains in place for east of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-Pukdo provinces. Please be careful with anything that could cause a fire and drink plenty of water to stay well. We had sunny skies to start off the day, then sunshine will be covered with lots of clouds as the afternoon goes on. Then Gyeongju and Jeju are exceptionally warm with highs of 20 degrees Celsius, Busan topping out at 19 degrees this afternoon. Then there could be light overnight rain. Rain clouds will expand to central regions in Jeollabuk-do province, which should let up before tomorrow's morning commute. Then freezing air swings into the country from Thursday afternoon, and early winter feeling stays through the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. We have our panel session coming up next, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.